Welcome into the State Line Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Boone. Alongside me, as always, the great Josh Miller.
We are back, and we are back better than ever. We are deep diving into a few things today. We're going to talk Lakers. We're going to talk Nuggets. We're going to talk Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to jump into our own MVP races. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the 350,000 different streaming services that the NBA has decided to use this year, but actually have this, I think it's been an actual huge W for the NBA. But let's get right into it.
We are going to start off by diving into this year's MVP race. There are a lot of candidates that can be included in this race. A lot of that is due to the new 65-game minimum rule that the NBA has implemented in recent years. That leaves several players on the borderline due to games played. And this field kind of feels open to just about anybody, especially once you get past most people's consensus number one, as there's an overwhelming favorite odds-wise. But the field does feel open this year, as several players have maybe not been as consistent as they have in the past, as well as just the game minimum. Like I mentioned in the past, I'm going to let Josh take over here because I feel like he's going to be very opinionated specifically about this due to a specific fandom that he may have. So I'm going to let him kick it off with his top MVP odds list.
Here we go, and I'm going to start out at my number 3 on my ballot if it ended today. It would be Mr. Cade Cunningham. Just to go through, his basic averages, which is what a lot of people are going to jump to. 25 points a game, 5.8 rebounds per game, 9.9 assists per game. That is number 2 in the NBA, so he's giving you 25 and 10. He is only shooting 45% from the field, so he is not shooting a great percentage from the field, although I will tie a little bit up to that as the points that Casey pointed out last time, as there is a very lack of shot creating on this team. So therefore, he is having to take a lot of those shots, and then when he's not shooting, he's creating all shots for the team. I believe he has about it's 30 or 40% of their total points are off of him, specifically whether if it's scoring or assisting, which is by far the most in the NBA right now. So the team is very, very dependent on him, and their record has been, great this year with that. They're sitting at the number 1 seed in the East. I don't know how many people saw that heading into this season, sitting at 45 and 15, which is, I believe that's the second best record in the NBA right now. So when a lot of people are going to be looking at it, they're going to be looking at records, they're going to be looking at those 3 stats. But overall, he's had a tremendous year. The only real knock on him is he can have some games where he just doesn't really shoot it great and takes a lot of shots, but they don't have a lot of shot creating on that team, and he's responsible for most of that team's offense, and he's that team's leader. Cade Cunningham is number 3 on that MVP ballot today. At number 2 is a guard who is the reigning MVP, the reigning NBA Finals champion, the reigning NBA Finals MVP. I say these things begrudgingly because this guy's the overwhelming favorite for MVP. He's sitting at least, I don't remember exactly what the odds are, but he's overwhelmingly blown away the MVP favorite to win back-to-back MVPs, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's just been flat-out unbelievable this year. He's given you 31.8 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, 6.4 assists on 55% shooting, which is just it's unheard of. He's given you he's only 38% from 3, but he's really not he is not known to be a great 3-point shooter. He's just so good in that mid-range area and getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. If you give this guy MVP last year, then I don't see how you may not give it to him this year, considering how good he has played. They have the best record in the league. They have been really, really good without him. But, does that knock his MVP case? Some people would say yes. Some people would say no. Guy has been flat out tremendous. This is his 3rd or 4th season in a row, where he's given you over 30 points per game. and he's doing so basically near that 50-40-90, but he's at 55-38-89. I mean, that's just unheard of. At number 1, maybe I'm biased, maybe I'm not, but I'm just going to give a guy, I'm not even going to name names here, I'm just going to tell you it's a center from Sombor, Serbia, who is leading the NBA in assists per game, while leading the NBA in rebounds per game, while still giving his team 28 points per game, and shooting a whopping, let's see, he's shooting over 50, I believe it's 58% from the, or 57% from the field, 40% from 3. Like I said, I'm not going to name any names yet. I'll let y'all maybe guess who that player would be. Because if any other player was doing this, it would be by far blown away. This got to be runaway favorite for MVP. I mean, has not been playing very good as of late. And we're going to get into this a little bit later, is a lot to do with this knee injury that he had back against the Heat, earlier this year. But the guy is giving you 28, 12 and a half rebounds, 10.3 assists, while shooting 40% from 3 and 57 from the line. He just does more than any other player for his team in the league. He's by far the most valuable player to his team in the league. While they actually have been fairly decent without him, they didn't really play anyone when he was out. So you can't really credit that. They have not been playing good as of late. I cannot defend that, which, like I said, we will get into that later. But if I'm looking at someone who's been the most valuable player to his team, who's the best player in the NBA, all those things considered, Nikola Jokic should be the favorite right now as we sit here today to win his 4th MVP.
I knew you would go there, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you what I'm about to say, but Nikola Jokic is not a top 4 or not a top 3 MVP candidate to me this year. I have him at number 4 if I was to go through it right now. And it's a lot of the things that you just mentioned, and I think there's an overarching Nuggets issue that we're going to get into. We talk about the team in totality, but if we just want to talk about Jokic specifically, 5-8 since his return, 1-5 in the clutch. They went 10-6 in that stretch without Jokic that he missed. Defense has significantly dropped since his return. No team has ever won a title in the defensive net rating statistical category that they would fit under right now. I think that's gotten better over the last couple games. That you could see the intensity of that team maybe upscaled a little bit, just with all the concerns. But I'm not the biggest. Let's just look at the stat sheet and go based on strict numbers, because I think there's a deeper analytical thing to it. I think some of the advanced metrics that people look at now are very useful. I do really enjoy the net rating stats and just that view of it and the construction of really the overall team performance. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now is what Jokic is doing individually. I think is very similar to those Russell Westbrook years when he was kind of doing it all for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and where obviously they're going to put up a lot of triple doubles. You're going to have these stats that just, wow, it's never seen before, but it's not translating to significant team production, which is most valuable to me. Is that's what it means, is your ability to transcend your team into a position to where they can win a championship legitimately every single time that you're on the court, and you ascend your team and organization above the teams that you're in the group of. I think that's very important. And everybody wants to talk about MVP is not a team stat, like you shouldn't factor in wins, but I think that actually is something that should hold significant weight. Now, if you're talking about defensive player of the year, if you're talking about the rookie of the year, clutch player of the year, some of these other ones maybe not as significant in that category to where those don't hold as much weight. But to me, the most valuable player holding a high record and your team having significant success when you're out on the floor is a very important part of that. And they've only finished first in the Western Conference one time in his tenure there. That was the year that they won the title. They were fourth in the West last year. They are on pace to be around that again this year, third, fourth, or fifth. It just, to me, with the way they've been playing lately, he hasn't. When we thought, oh, the Nuggets are going to fall off a cliff here with Jokic out, they didn't do that. And then when you thought he was coming back, you're like, okay, here we go. The Nuggets are going to make their run. And again, they just haven't done that. He hasn't elevated this team to the level that you would want out of an MVP. Great player. You know what he's going to get. He's going to be consistent night in, night out. The shooting has dipped significantly. Those percentages that you mentioned would be even higher, which is crazy at his position, I mean, he's a great player. There's no doubt about it. This year, I think it would be a disservice to some of these other guys to give him the MVP award. I didn't want to do it because I don't want this to be a biased, opinionated piece, but we talk about the dominance of Nikola Jokic as an offensive player. The same can be said about the dominance of Victor Wembanyama as a defensive player. The Spurs are the number one defense in the NBA the last 2 months. You go back and watch the Pistons game when they played in Detroit just a week ago. You go back and watch the game last night against Philadelphia. He's not maybe putting up prolific offensive scoring nights, but he doesn't have to because the Spurs are about to be one of the only teams in NBA history to ever have 8 guys average double figures in a season. They spread the wealth around on offense. That's not his job on offense. He is the ultimate gravity player. There's so much attention on him on both sides of the floor that it allows everybody else on the team to eat, which is why when you say most valuable and you talk about the gravity of a player, nobody can argue what Victor Wembanyama is doing. He is actually 4 blocks away from passing Nikola Jokic all time in blocks. You got to think Wemby's played 3 seasons. Nikola Jokic has been in the league for a decade plus now. The gravity that man has on the defensive end of the floor, guys they get foul line and they're scared to take a jump shot. They're having to be extra physical with him. It doesn't bother him. To me, the gravity that he has, the way the Spurs team is performing, that alone to me has him boosted into third, slightly above Nikola Jokic. Now, I'm not going to have a problem if people flip-flop those, but I think you've got to take into account where the teams are sitting, the trend of that team, what that player means to that roster at this moment. And so that's why I have that where it's at right now. Number 1 on my ballot this is extremely tough for me. It's a complete toss-up. I want to give the nod to Cade Cunningham, but I just can't see him winning this award if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander plays the minimum required of games, which it looks like he's probably going to end up doing, and he's got more to spare in terms of meeting that minimum than what Jokic and Wemby does. And so I think there's going to be several times where you're going to see Shai sit in games where maybe they don't feel they need him or they're coming off a second night of a back-to-back. But if he plays the minimum number, it's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's award to lose. He's a heavy favorite. I think it's minus 230 at this point. Cade would be the guy I would vote number 2 right behind him. If Shai does not meet that minimum, what the Detroit Pistons are doing, number 1 overall record in the league. They suffered a tough loss to Cleveland, which we'll get into a little bit later on, but they've been a juggernaut all year long, taking care of other top teams in the East. That's the team to beat right now in the Eastern Conference, and I've said it on the podcast last time, they just don't have that true number 2 that a lot of these other teams have. He's having to just carry a lot of the burden on the offensive end, and that dude gives a shit on defense. I mean, he tries hard. The effort that he puts in, is impressive from a superstar caliber player because you don't see it a lot. I actually think he cares, which is why you're seeing him foul out of some games because he's being physical and getting up in guys on the defensive end. There's 2 superstars that when they try on defense, they're very good defenders, and that's him and Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards just does not have the same level of care that Cade does. But if you're 20 seconds on the shot clock and the game's on the line, I would put my life on the line that Anthony Edwards is going to get that stop, and same with Cade Cunningham. But it's the consistency of a full game that we've got to monitor with those guys. But I think Cade really gives an effort, which I respect, and I think especially with the amount of load he has to carry on the offensive end, that's something that I think shouldn't be underlooked when you look at his MVP candidacy. So obviously a little bit different list than what you have, completely different, honestly. But I think, again, like I mentioned in the open, it's a very wide open MVP race because of the nature of the new rules. And when Tim Bontemps and the Hoop Collective guys did that ESPN poll, you could see that because the voting was kind of just all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those points were good. And, as far as your list, it could very well end up being voted that exact way. I mean, we don't know up to this point. I mean, since we're just going to talk a little bit about the record without Nikola Jokic, I will say the Spurs are 10-4 this year without Wemby on the floor. And where you say Wemby's impact on the defensive end does make them the best defensive team in the league, which I completely agree with. The guy's already the best defender I've ever seen in the NBA, and he's only been in the league 3 years. By far the best defensive player in the league today as we speak. But there's a guy who also that I mentioned that's number one on my list. And look, a lot of those things that you're saying are correct. They have not been playing good. There's no arguing against that. But Spurs are the best defensive in the league when Wemby's on the floor. Who's the best offensive team when Jokic is on the floor, and the best offensive team overall? So that has a lot to do with it. I mean,
I get what you're saying in that, but the Spurs are also a top 5 to 8 offensive team in the league, where the Nuggets are bottom 10 defensively.
I can't defend him defensively. There's no.
I mean, I get your point, but the impact that Wemby makes on both sides of the floor was my main argument. And I'm not picking him to win the award. I don't think he's going to win the award, nor probably should he this year, because I just think there's some other candidates that probably deserve it more. But the gravity that he has on both sides of the floor, I mean, they're occupying 2 and 3 guys on this guy on the offensive. He is a matchup nightmare offensively that if you let him have any sort, he can catch the ball without leaving the feet, and it's a dunk.
Look, I completely
the gravity
agree,
has on that side of the floor has also led the Spurs to be a top 10 offense. Well,
Jokic has
translated on both
gravity.
sides of the floor, which is my argument.
Yeah.
There's no doubt on offense.
Jokic is a terrible defender. There's no denying it. So if you want to really factor in it 50-50, I cannot defend it whatsoever. The Wemby would just outweigh the Jokic offensive by a long, long mile. I cannot argue that. But either way, neither one of these.
I think if Jokic had come back and this team was a 10-15 in defensive net rating, to where, look, they're losing close games because they just can't stop anybody. Like if they were just an average to slightly above average defensive team in the league, I don't think there would be an argument for Jokic over. You can flip-flop it anyways, but there probably wouldn't even be an argument to be had. But they're just so historically bad for a team that has championship aspirations on that side of the floor they're the only team in the last 30 years who won a championship without a top 15 defense. So there's no denying it. They're terrible defensively. And there's another. I think there's a deeper aspect to when guys are off. Like we've both mentioned the record of those guys being off the court, and the Spurs have won games without Wemby. There's no doubt, and the Nuggets have done it without Jokic. But I think, and Kevin Durant had mentioned this, like it's a great time to be in the NBA with the league rules, because everybody feels like they have a legit chance, because rosters, I think, are more balanced now than what they have ever been, because the dispersion of the money is not so centralized on just 2 or 3 players. Then the reason the Nuggets have had so much success is because they recognized that, and they spent their money to deepen their bench and their roster that allows them to have that opportunity if Jokic isn't on the floor to maintain a certain level of success. Obviously, no team with a star player is going to have the same level of success without them, but it makes it a little easier in today's world with those rules.
Yeah, I agree. And look, neither one of these guys are likely going to win the MVP, so here we are arguing over something that probably doesn't even matter. But look, these are two of our favorite players, so that's just how we're going to feel, and that's just is what it is. But we gave our credit to Cade Cunningham. You have Shea leading the award. So does Vegas. Let's give him his credit. I mean, we both don't want him to win the award. I think we can see eye to eye on that, but definitely is by far the runaway favorite right now. And if he doesn't miss enough games, I mean, I could definitely see him walking away with the back-to-back MVP case here.
Yeah, I think he's going to win it. That's part of the reason that I had him in that spot. Now, I would probably pick elsewhere, but I mean, there's no doubt, just based on the way that it's trending, that that's going to be the way it's going to go. But I think to transition off of that, one guy that has historically been in this race, but is not any longer and may not be moving forward, depending on how you view about this player, Luka Doncic, nowhere to be found, not even discussed, won't be on the ballot this year for the most valuable player award as the Lakers. With Luka, without Luka, bad basketball team, and there's I think a myriad of different reasons for that. I am very curious to hear your opinion on this, because I think you have an idea of where I stand on this, but go ahead and give your opinion on why maybe the Lakers are struggling and why Luka Doncic is not an MVP candidate this year, besides just the games played rule.
So it has been an absolute terrible couple weeks since post Super Bowl, really. It's just been, obviously the Lakers are always going to be the talk of the town, and it's just been dump on Luka ever since the Super Bowl ended. And I'm just not here for it. I mean, there's definitely things that we can sit here and harp on Luka, and they're the same issues why Nico Harrison traded Luka. I get all of that. I get it all. But this guy is still tremendous. I mean, he's leading the league in scoring. He's having a year similar to what he's had in the past in Dallas, where he was right there in the MVP race. Like, his stats aren't changing. He's doing the same things that he was doing in the past. The reason that this team is not having the successes that they had is because of the same reasons that you and I and everyone else saw about this roster, that it's just not that good. And here we are, we just want to dump on Luka. Yeah, he complains to the refs. That's what he's always done. And, he's gotten his team to the finals by doing so, and he's just because of how good he's been on the offensive end, obviously, just as Nikola Jokic. I mean, these two are pretty similar. They're sitting at basically the same record right now. And yeah, people have Jokic in the MVP race because of what he's doing, and then Luka, as you said, he's not even being talked about in it because really no one gives them a chance to win the championship. The only reason the Nuggets get a chance to win the championship is just because they've done it before. So as far as, the dump on Luka train that's been going on, and I get it. There's plenty of reasons to dump on him for the complaining he does to the refs. Now he's getting into it with JJ Redick, and that's a whole episode. I don't know if you saw that, them two getting to it on the bench the other day. They've been playing better lately because of, they've been playing the Kings and the Pelicans and a couple of those teams who are terrible. But, they haven't beaten anyone good. They're sitting, like I said, they've been playing about it the same way the Nuggets have been. But I'm not giving up on Luka Doncic. I think that they just don't have a great team built around him. And we went over this in the playoffs last year, where it's like, why aren't they doing anything? Why can't they win? Because their roster's not that good. They don't have a big. They're going to see what they can do as far as building a team similar to what Dallas had back when they did make the finals. I don't know how they're actually going to end up doing so. So, it's easy to dump on Luka because now he's in the LA media and, it's championship or bust for them regardless. I completely get that. And he's got to do it soon, but he's not going to do it with this roster. I mean, it's just not very good. So he has got to be better. I completely agree with that. But as far as offensively, I feel like he's doing about the same things he's always done, but it's not showing up as far as winning meaningful games, which is, that's all it's about at this point. But I'm not there with everyone else as far as we're just going to give up on Luka. He's never going to win a ring. He's never going to win an MVP, all these things. Like, I'm just not there. I mean, obviously, I'm just not giving him as much as the blame as everyone else. I guess that's what I should say here, because if you're just looking at the numbers, which I know you said you can't just look at the numbers because he's been horrible defensively, and I cannot defend that whatsoever, and I can't defend him, crying to the refs and all those times and all those things he does. But I'm just going to lean on the fence that's saying it's been a little way too loud negatively towards the Luka train, which some of it, as you're about to, I'm sure you're going to jump in on that side. Some of it's extremely reasonable and I can't defend, but I'm going to lean towards the side of, hold on, I'm not going to give up on this guy just yet. I'm blaming more so of these issues on the roster overall.
I'm not going to give up yet, but I've got 1 foot out the door. And yes, this isn't a straight Luka Doncic problem. This is a Rob Pelinka. This is a LeBron James. This is an Austin Reeves. This is a JJ Redick. This is a Jeannie Buss. This is a Mark Walton. This is a Lakers organization issue. From top to bottom, there is no one that is getting more blame from me than another. However, these issues continue to hurt Luka Doncic. They continue to linger. The man got traded and cried his eyes out about what transpired with the Dallas Mavericks, and yet it still did not signal a wake-up call for him. He got a technical foul while shooting free throws the other night. A technical foul while you are on the free throw line and you get a technical foul. Just shut the hell up. You're on the free throw line. He is out of shape. LeBron James, I hate LeBron James more than I hate anybody else in the world. You name the political figure that's done world wrong, and I hate LeBron James more than that guy. LeBron James at 41-year-old is in a better physical condition than a mid-20-year-old Luka Doncic. His conditioning is better. His body structure is better. He takes care of himself. Luka is not going to win a championship in any uniform until he has a little bit of self-awareness. He inspires himself to change the habits that have resulted in him being where he's at. He hasn't been a serious MVP candidate in 4 years. A lot of that is his health, which once again has popped up in several instances this year. I still don't know if that calf of his is fully healthy. Who knows? I mean, the best ability is availability, and I just have no idea if he's going to be available. And when he's available, what version of you are going to get. Unlike some of the other superstars that we are talking, if these guys are on the floor consistently night in and night out, they're not going to get flat out embarrassed like the Los Angeles Lakers have in many instances this year. And I get it. The team's not very good. I still don't think that it is an excuse. They just look flat out disinterested in playing basketball many nights, and your two top stars don't get along. I dismiss a lot of the JJ Redick and Luka Doncic. Those verbal arguments are going to happen between stars and coaches at times. They're two competitive dudes, and that's just something that it happens naturally within the flow of basketball. If you don't care if you're not having those type of moments. Now, Luka needs to control his, like, that. You have to respect your coach too. Like, you can't be the type where you can't be David Blatt with LeBron James, where you just get walked all over and you have no respect inside that locker room. And JJ Redick won't allow that. He's not going to be a shill and a pig like David Blatt was, but you've got to give the coach a little bit of respect and not stand up and start going after him. Look, everybody's to blame for this, but Luka has his own issues, and there's a reason why he hasn't won an MVP. There's a reason why he completely melted down in the finals. There's a reason why one of the most respected basketball voices, Brian Windhorst, went on in just an unbelievable rant after an NBA Finals game, which Luka fouled out with several minutes to go in a game in which they were within the thick of things, and that was the change in the series. They went up 3-1 at that point, I believe, and every feedback that Windhorst got after that rant, Dallas Mavericks people did not push back on it whatsoever. And again, we've figured out what their opinion of Luka is. But it's pretty telling that the organization that you play for does not even push back on a media member that just completely berated you and basically questioned your integrity for the game in a way. There's a lot of signs that keep reoccurring with Luka that's why people are getting to the point where they are starting to question the outcomes of his career and whether he's going to be able to produce when it matters and at a consistent rate to where he can win an MVP, to where he can win a championship. And again, going to Los Angeles has only increased these narratives and the pressure and the media coverage of his career. And so, yeah, all of his warts are going to be shown over and over and over again, and that's the price that you pay for going to the Lakers. Now, he didn't ask for that, but that's the circumstances that you deal with. It's the same when you get drafted to the Knicks or the Lakers or the Heat. Like, there's just certain places you're going to have more pressure, you're going to have more attention, and there's going to be more demand for you to live up to expectations, to perform in a way. And you're in the house that Kobe Bryant rushed back from an Achilles injury that ruined the rest of his career because he was just that determined and that focused as a player who was just a psycho basketball warrior. There was never a doubt if he was on the floor, he was a killer. He was somebody that was going to be in better shape than you. He was going to attack you. And I just worry about some of those things with Luka, and being in Los Angeles, you're going to get that narrative heavier than you would other places, and that's the reality that he faces, and it's up to him if he wants to change those narratives. Now, again, I'm not putting the entire blame on him. I could spend 4 episodes of this podcast going into why LeBron James has failed this organization and why Austin Reeves is a terrible fit for this basketball team and why Rob Pelinka should have been fired yesterday. But he's going to have a little bit of immunity because he does have Luka Doncic on his team now. But we'll see how much longer Mark Walt will put up with that.
He didn't hang up on the GM for the Mavericks that's gone.
Yeah, Nico Harrison.
He didn't hang up on Nico Harrison, so that's why he still has his job. I can call up any Lakers fan right now and say, what's your opinion on Rob Pelinka? It's just, this roster is just not good.
He's overstayed his welcome since that bubble championship. The year or two after that, when he just failed to completely build the roster and a chance that would give them another title opportunity, he should have been let go then. But again, the connection with Kobe and the connection with the Buss family has allowed him to keep his job, and they gave him an extension and a raise before they eventually sold the team. Now, the deep pockets that these Dodgers owners have and the Waltons, they don't care. They can get rid of him at any moment. Now, it sounds like he's going to stay on this year, but I don't suspect he'll be there much. Yeah, he won't be there much longer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those things you said, I mean, I can't really push back on a lot of those things. I mean, no, even the biggest Luka supporters, and I mean, I feel like I've been in that side of his support camp for a while now. I can't defend some of those things. It just is what it is. And I just feel like some of those things, they're just not going to change. They're just not going to change. He just is who he is at this point. He's 27, 28 years old. He just is what he is at this point. So that's why I say it just comes down to building the team around him, because he definitely has the talent to be the best player on a championship team. And he is hard to build around. It's very similar to the LeBron James and how play styles, like, it is very hard to build around him. There's no doubt about it, but it's the Los Angeles Lakers. They've just got to get it done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's championship or bust there every single year. So, I mean, there's not much more we can really say about it. Like I said, we could spend hours upon hours going through all the wrong decisions that we think the Lakers organization has made from a roster standpoint and a coaching staff standpoint and all of those things. We could get through all of that, or you can just go listen to Stephen A. Smith or whoever all the national media who's going to discuss the Lakers. So I feel like we've talked enough about them. If we want to jump into who you talked about back, I guess, the other day on the ISO and who we talked about earlier, is what is going on with the Denver Nuggets, because in their last 30 plus games, they're not even 500. They're like 17 and 18 in their last 35 or whatever games. I mean, it's been pretty much a disaster for this Nuggets team, and this year, the guy talking here hasn't missed a single dribble of this team, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's starting to really worry me. When are they going to turn on this on switch? Because have you seen the schedule coming up? I mean, it's Lakers, it's Spurs, it's Thunder, they've got the hardest remaining schedule left in the league. Like, they have got to get it together at some point. They got Lakers, then they got Knicks, then they got Thunder, then they got Rockets, then they got Spurs, then they got Lakers, then they got a couple, easier games, and then they still got to play, the Warriors, who they lost to last time. Then they got to play the Spurs 2 more times after that, and then they still have to play the Thunder again. So these are all top 3-4 teams in their respective conferences that the Nuggets still have to play. Now, they have been horrible defensively, to the point where I don't even know if they're trying. I legitimately don't. I question their effort on the defensive end at times. It's extremely frustrating. I do think David Adelman is a good coach, and I really do like him, but, I mean, as much credit as I gave Jokic earlier, I will side with you on some of those things that you mentioned since then, as far as a negative impact towards him, because he's just not trying defensively, and they don't have the bodies defensively, especially when their 2 best defenders, really their 3 best defenders, are out in Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, and Spencer Jones have all been out, and all those guys are expected to be back within the next week or 2 from what I would think. At least I know Aaron Gordon and Spencer Jones, not so sure on Peyton Watson, hopefully soon. So the only hope is they turn the on switch on, the switch on when those guys get back, or else it's playing for this team right now. So I don't know. They've signed a couple of guys. They signed Tyus Jones and David Roddy, 2 Memphis Grizzly legends. So maybe they can come in and fix their ship. I don't know, but I watched this team play the Jazz, and it took a miracle Jamal Murray masterclass to beat the Utah Jazz, who didn't play anyone. Kyle Filipowski looked like prime Duke self Filipowski. This team has it in them. That when we're going through the list of contenders, even you know it and I know it, they have it in them to turn the switch on to be a team who's capable of winning a championship. They have not done so. Can they do it before it's too late? I am starting to get worried, but I'm not going to give up on this team. Definitely was wrong about them getting the 1 seed back when I did preseason predictions. That was more me just hoping and trusting their depth, that they've had so many injuries. So they're looking to get healthy at the right time, but can they keep these guys healthy? Can they start winning games? And I got to hear your thoughts as all the negative things that you said about Jokic, and a lot of them things really are true. I can't really push back. How much do you put of this on the knee injury that he had? And before you go, this Lou Dort thing that happened the other day where he tried to trip him and hit his knee and whatever, that resulted in Lou Dort getting ejected and Jokic getting really, really mad. Do you think, yes or no, that Jokic would have gotten that mad had he known that his knee is already injured at that time and it looked as if maybe he was trying to re-injure that knee? Jokic's reaction to that really, just from a guy who watches every single dribble of this team, and especially Nikola Jokic himself, his reaction to that was very telling. And I will say I am getting to pretty worried about his knee injury.
We've seen this in the past. I think he still would have got as mad. He has that level of temperament. I mean, he ended Morris's career with that running shot where he just plowed through him after a hard hit. I think he would have gotten that mad and had that same reaction. Now those evil, crazy eyes, I don't know if maybe that level would have came out of him, but that still would have been a dust up to an extent. But one thing a big thing I want to point on with the Nuggets is, what is Cam Johnson for this team? He has provided little to nothing in my, I don't think he's been a positive player for this team when he's out there. Not knocking down shots to the clip that we had maybe gotten used to seeing him do at his previous stops, whether that was Phoenix or Brooklyn. And you look at the percentage, like you'll say, oh, he's shooting 40% from three, but it feels like every big shot that this guy has had this year has just not gone down. Again, he's only played 37 games for him. He hasn't necessarily. There's only been one time in his career he's played more than 60 games, and that was back in 2021. So availability is a big question for him, and they should have known that when they traded for him. And a guy that they were trading away, there was questions about his availability. But one thing I'll say about Michael Porter Jr. is that dude was tough as nails, and you saw it in the playoff run. I mean, he was playing hurt and playing well hurt. We've said this, and it's been portrayed around the league as the reason you do that deal is not only, again, he's an expensive player, and he felt he was certainly limited by his position in Denver. But they just felt like he wasn't a fit there anymore. However, I think he was, basketball-wise, maybe a perfect fit for them. And it probably wasn't what he wanted out of it, but they trade him to clear out some roster space, and everybody's like, oh, they traded for Cam Johnson. This guy was a hot commodity on the trade deadline. Well, there's a reason Brooklyn couldn't get a deal done for multiple years. And I think we're kind of seeing that now. People, maybe and I don't even know if it's a Cam Thomas type thing to where they just put up kind of baseless empty stats on a bad team, but it's just not, he hasn't had the same level of impact that you would think he would have on a winning basketball team. And it's a weird looking fit. And again, they make that deal because they also add Bruce Brown and Jonas Valanciunas, which those guys have also been undermined by guys they already had on the roster. So they haven't had maybe the level of impact that you had expected them to have. One thing I also want to point out regarding this team is, not saying that it can't happen, but it would be an outlier. There have only been 2 teams in the history of the league to have won a championship and not been a top 3 seed in their conference. Twice. And both of those teams were defending champions. One of them was the Rockets in 95, and one of them was the Celtics in 69. Both of them coming off championships the previous year. So and we talk about the 40-20 rule, where only 4 teams have ever won a title since they started tracking the modern statistics. I think it's out of the last 43 years, 4 teams have ever won a title where they don't win 40 games before 20. There's also a stat where there has been 0 NBA championship teams to ever have won a title where they don't have a current or former all-defensive team member on their roster, which is an asinine stat. I just had no idea that was even a thing until I saw that stat the other day. and we talk about Nuggets not being good. If you look at the top 3 teams by record in the NBA this year, the Thunder, the Pistons, the Spurs, they are 1, 2, and 3 in net rating defensively this year. So that's gonna matter, and that's gonna win championships most years, because it rarely ever happens to where a team outside the top 10 in defensive net rating wins a championship. And so it sounds cliche, and your youth coach probably preached it to you back in the day that defense wins championships, but that's been proven time and time again within the NBA, and I think that's something that is going to be very crucial for the Nuggets. Will they figure it out? And look, Aaron Gordon's not the best singular on-ball defensive player in the league, but I think he does a good job of connecting them as a whole, because he's kind of that bigger physical force. Like, say they come up against the Timberwolves, where they would be slated to play if the playoffs started today. Without Aaron Gordon, they will get shredded by Julius Randle and Naz Reid. They have nobody on that roster that could guard either one of those two guys. And Aaron Gordon matches the physical prowess that you need to kind of stop those two guys. I would worry about them guarding Alperen Şengün if it was the Rockets that they were playing. So that's something that he's a connector for them, not necessarily the greatest defender, but we have seen when he is on the court, they are a better defensive team. They play better team defense. Peyton Watson obviously also contributes to that. He's a good team defender as well. And so I think they will improve in that category, but how much are they going to be able to prove? And look, teams have turned it around before, but they're 8-13 since their last 22 games. Like, they are below 500, like you mentioned. Can't at this point in the season, can you just kick it on, or are you who you are at this point in the season? Like, the trade deadline's gone. It doesn't seem like there's a significant buyout market. Chris Middleton looks like he's decided to stay in Dallas to hold on to his bird rights for a potential sign and trade in the offseason. So are they going to be able to add a significant player to this roster? And Tyus Jones just is not the type of archetype that they need that's going to change the way that the team's portrayed. I don't know if they're going to just be able to turn it on now. I'm starting to really get worried about it. And I've just kept saying, I feel like at some point it's going to happen, but you're running out of time, it feels like to me, to just turn it on. At what point are you who you are? And that's something I think that they've got to figure out.
Yeah, I completely agree. They've got to figure it out. There's not much time left, but I mean, they've been a team who hasn't, they've been, within that top 3-4 seeds, but not really a team that's taken the regular season extremely seriously. This is the hope that I can give. Plus, I mean, their defense, it's been bad, but we're going through it. They're missing some of their best, they're missing their best defenders they have. Peyton Watson is their best defender on their team. He's been out. He has been tremendous when he's played this year. He's up to 15 points a game. He should be back soon. Aaron Gordon is the glue, the heart and soul of this team, and he's been out pretty much all season long. So can they get those guys back in enough time, and can they stay healthy to be able to get the workload up to what it actually is? The Cam Johnson thing, it's been a disaster, I won't lie, but I actually think Cam Johnson, he actually has been, a good defender for this team when he's played. I do actually believe that, as far as he's been. I mean, they don't have a lot of good defenders. He's been one of their best defenders when he has played. Now his scoring has just been, it's been so bad this year, and I can't really explain it. The only hope is you get a couple other guys back. He's just going to be shooting wide open threes. I think he'll be able to figure out and hit some wide open threes. I mean, that's all they're going to need from him, to be honest. But we'll see how they go. I mean, but as you mentioned, I completely understand the worries, because I'm starting to get extremely worried myself. But I'm not going to give up yet. I'm not giving up yet on this team. I still think that they had it in there somewhere, but they better get it figured out soon because they've got the toughest remaining schedule left. But they still would be a team once they're in the playoffs that I just don't think really anyone is going to want to see. I mean, you're sitting near at the top of the Western Conference. I still don't think. I feel like there's a number of other teams you'd rather see other than this team once they're in, and if they're going to be on some sort of up and up heading into the playoffs. But can they get to that? I don't know. So.
And like you mentioned, they've got the toughest. They've got a 55 win percentage of the teams that's their strength of schedule left. Their teams average to be a 55% win percentage team. The good, fortunate thing for them is number 2 is Oklahoma City. Number 3 is Minnesota. Number 10 is the Lakers. And so teams that are around them in standings are relatively close. The bad news is, they're only a half game up on the Lakers from the 6th seed. We just completely buried the Lakers. We offered no hope whatsoever of this team being a serious threat, and they are a half game back from the Nuggets, who we are sitting here with a slight bit of optimism that they can turn it around. Which I don't know if that says more about our opinions on the Lakers or the Nuggets. So that's very interesting. They still got a little bit of wiggle room until they have to be worried about being in the play-in. That's 2.5 games separate them and the Phoenix Suns. And the Phoenix Suns right now are still without Dillon Brooks. And so I struggle to see them making a legit run at a top 6 seed. But I mean, they're a half game up on the Lakers, and we just completely wrote the Lakers off. So it's going to be an interesting finish to the year. One of these teams has to step up and kind of take it. The bad thing that the Nuggets are kind of feeling right now is the Timberwolves are starting to figure it out. They're getting hot kind of at the right moment. In the midst of a 3-game win streak, they've won 6 of 7. And the team is kind of rolling now. Anthony Edwards is he is on one right now, making the shot he made over 2 guys the other night where he kind of gets in Chris Finch's face a little bit, because I think it was one of those moments where Finch wanted him to pass it out. Clippers brought a double, and he makes this ridiculous shot right in front of his own bench. And so that's just He's a dude that we probably should have mentioned in the MVP candidate, because I don't think this Timberwolves team would probably even be a playoff team without him. He is unbelievable, and I'm kind of mad at myself sitting here and talking about it that I didn't mention him earlier. He's one of he kills the Spurs every time, because I think there's something between him and Wemby, and I think both of them enjoy that matchup. But he is one of my favorite players in the league to watch. He is he just has that killer instinct.
I am right there with you 100%.
Yeah, and so they're surging at the right time, and I mentioned it on the ISO episode I did on Tuesday. That's the team in the Western Conference that scares me the most. From a pure matchup standpoint for the Spurs, they have that dude in Anthony Edwards that he just terrifies me, and I don't think there's a player like that for the Spurs specifically. Jokic has that ability with certain matchups. Shea has that ability. But for the Spurs matchup specifically, that dude is a killer, and he wants it.
And he's
so that makes me... they're 2-1 versus the Spurs this year.
They've been back-to-back conference finals. That's definitely a team that we haven't talked about enough that definitely deserves it.
Yeah, they've got the pedigree of any team in the Western Conference that if they're going to upset Oklahoma City, they might be the team that we should be talking about instead of some of these other teams, because they do have that dude. They do have a guy who's playing unbelievable defensively, and he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, and he's probably not going to win it this year. But his time winning it's probably over. But Rudy Gobert's been unbelievable anchoring that defense. However, this is the same thing we talked about with Rudy Gobert in Utah, and it's the same reason Donovan Mitchell wanted out of Utah. Why the hell is Rudy Gobert, somebody that I want no part of on the offensive side of the ball, do not give him the ball, is saying, oh, I'm glad we got Kyle Anderson because he'll pass the ball. Shut the hell up. You have no offensive scoring threat. Your team is winning games, and you're sitting over here complaining about not getting the ball. Your role is to play defense. Be a big presence in the middle, deter guys from coming into the lane, and set hard screens on offense, roll to the basket, get rebounds, and get put back dunks. Find the ball that way. Anthony Edwards ain't passing the ball to you. Just like Donovan Mitchell wasn't passing the ball to him. Why? Rudy Gobert is, why?
I can't stand the guy. I cannot stand the guy.
Why? I don't
He's a
understand
fake tough guy, Kasey. He's a fake tough guy.
I don't understand why some of these players feel the need to say certain things in the media. And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, but social media has just ruined the perception of sports in a bad way, and I think that's honestly a good place to transition into. There's 80 million places to watch an NBA basketball game. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Shout out NBC, because that throwback version of their broadcast
Amazing.
that I watched with that Spurs 76ers game was unbelievable. Get Bob Costas and Collins on every single broadcast.
Well, can we pay them? We gotta pay them. They've gotta be back.
Jim Gray was great on the sidelines. He actually has like a real conversation. Like, these questions aren't just stupid that he's asking. Shout out PJ Carlesimo, who was on the pregame show, who was an assistant under Popovich for many years. Just fantastic. I'm not the biggest Isaiah Thomas fan in the world, but just the dynamic of that crew together brings back a lot of nostalgia. Obviously, we weren't alive really to experience it in its prime, but to see it now, to see the old school graphics, it's stuff that we've seen in documentaries and movies, and man, it felt good, and I wish they would do that more often. It sounds like it's something that could become a part of their annual broadcast.
Yeah, I demolished the NBA in the early part or off season here whenever we kind of discussed what the NBA was going to do as far as all these streaming services, and it is still annoying to try and figure out which ones they're on, but I can't give enough credit to all of these. Well, I mean, even really the ESPN, who I thought was the worst, and I would still probably rank towards the bottom, has been a lot better this year.
It's still a joke. I dread every game that's
well,
on ESPN. It's a garbage.
But if I can get Legler on, I like listening to Legler. So
yeah, and maybe it's just indicative of what these other platforms have done.
It was better than a Doris Burke-led primetime group, man. Okay.
Prime has done a good job with the Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, Blake Griffin, Dwayne Wade. That whole getting those old players together, and then obviously Taylor Rooks is an up and coming star in terms of just personalities, in terms of women personalities in the sport. I think she's well respected among her peers, probably for other reasons, but I also do think she does a good job journalistically. However,
loves having her on the show.
However, that's a fantastic production. The NBC, it goes without saying, but they have been. Round Ball Rock is a joy to hear every time I see it. And those two productions, I hate to say it, I do not care about Inside the NBA anymore. If I don't have to hear Shaq on my TV screen, it's a good day.
I disagree.
If I don't have to hear Kenny Smith on my TV screen, I think it's a fine day. I still love hearing Charles Barkley because he's just hilarious. But I hate the mentality of Shaq. And he's give the Spurs some credit this year, which he hasn't in the past. But his mentality of the game now sucks. It was better when I played. I would kill all these guys these days. I hate that, and I'm tired of hearing it. I wish he would get over that and just give the credit to the players in today's world that people are there to watch. So I still like obviously I still
don't forgive him for what he did when Jokic won that MVP. I still don't forgive him. What he said to Jokic, I'll never forgive him. But I still think as far as listening to Zach Lowe the other day, I don't have the numbers to back it up, but he is, according to him, ratings have been great this year as compared to last year. And I don't know if that's because they're on so many different ones. I don't know. I think it's cool to have the Inside the NBA, and I think it's cool that there's a lot more services that are all in for the NBA and hiring and spending these big money on these big names, and they're kind of, divided out evenly. Now you got Reggie Miller on the nightcap with the NBC, which I like having that, with, the Eagle crew and that's or one of them, they're on, you got the Prime, they're all over the place. You can't even keep up. But I will say, it's not like I'm dreading for one or the other services to have one of the games. Obviously, I would prefer if the ESPN didn't have some of these ones that I wanted to watch, but it's like, I feel like they're all pretty good. I don't really have I don't have a ton of negative things to say about these whenever I see a game that I want to watch is on a certain one. So.
Yeah, I for the most part agree. If the ESPN could stick to the Inside the NBA crew, because the other crew is just horrendous.
Well, that I agree with that.
But yes, and get Doris Burke off these games. Legler does a great job. I've sung his praises well before most people have. I actually do enjoy that Zach Lowe is a part of the Prime Video broadcast, which is awesome to see. He obviously does a great job with Bill Simmons and now with the Ringer. So yeah, it has been an improvement, and hopefully, well, depends who you ask, but hopefully the NBA is about to have even more money they could spend on producing the quality of their game, because hopefully the WNBA crumbles from right underneath their feet, which it sounds like they're heading towards a lockout, and who knows what's going to happen with that. We won't get into that on this episode because that's not our domain, and that could lead us to more problems than we need to have already. But yeah, overall, I think the production quality, and you saw the ratings that came out for the All-Star game, they were up significantly over the past decade, and the NBA has had ratings boost this year, and I think with just the parity that's going on in the NBA this year, Tatum's return potentially imminent, it really does feel like the league's wide open now. Obviously the Thunder are going to go into it pretty heavy favorites. They might even be minus money by the time the playoffs rolls around in terms of the champion. But it sure feels like there are several different teams, when it's all said and done, that are going to have a chance to win a title this year, which is exciting. There's a lot of parity in the league, as I mentioned, and it sets up for a very fun playoffs that's going to be transpiring in about a month and a half.
Yep, I completely agree. We are getting so close. Just a number of things. I do agree. I think the Thunder will be in the minus. They'll probably be, even money headed into the playoffs, but other than that, I do agree that this league is wide open. We went over the teams that I think are contenders. We don't have a lot more time to get into it, but I really, really love how the Cleveland Cavaliers have been playing. We touched a little bit on the Timberwolves and how good they've been playing as of late. We're well documented in how much we love Chris Finch and how good of a coach we think he is. Obviously, Anthony Edwards, that whole team. So there's really no telling what's going to happen. Hopefully the Nuggets can get it together for my personal sake, and hopefully the Grizzlies can just continue to lose out the rest of the year. That'd be awesome. Spurs are right there in the thick of things and potential to win it all this year. Imagine Casey Boone on this podcast if that happens already. Oh my gosh, we'd never ever hear the end of it, but we're here for it. We got big games going on right now as we're recording this that are, nearing up. And then we've got a huge weekend of the NBA. And we're getting to the point where every single game is extremely, extremely important.
It's a fun time to be a basketball fan. If you don't like it, then we don't really care. You should like it because we like it. It's a great sport. Personally, the NBA is my favorite professional sports league, so it's a great time to be a fan. Obviously, it helps when the Spurs are this good and have a chance. But again, I'm with you. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they're getting hot at the right time. The Timberwolves are getting hot at the right time. Those are two teams that down the stretch I would not want to play. Obviously, we've well documented the success of the Pistons and the Thunder up to this point, who are going to lead their conferences likely into the playoffs. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the State Line Fast Break podcast. As always, you can find us on all your social feeds at the State Line Fast Break Pod, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you dabble in that realm. You can also find us on all your streaming podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. This has been yet another edition of the State Line Fast Break Pod. Please continue to leave suggestions and recommendations moving forward. We appreciate your support on this podcast, and we look forward to the next one.